This has been a great conference here in Ireland. And Inspire, which is the group that organized this, along with the Autism Societies in Cork and the National Autism Society, gathered here in Dublin, the leaders in autism in Ireland. This is a unique place, a place of hope and light and strength, growing strength in terms of understanding how folks on the spectrum can be best served and how they themselves can embrace their strengths and have that valued in terms of the lives they lead. It's a great conference.
It's been very good to be at the Spectrum Conference today in Dublin, and some of the key messages that I would like people to take away are that there are a lot of things to celebrate, and there's a lot of things that have been done well. There's a lot we can learn from working with parents and from family members as people with autism get older, and siblings are more and more involved in decisions about brothers and sisters. And there are still some challenges and things that we need to work on. And one of the biggest of those is how do we involve people in decisions about their own lives, and how do we support people to be involved in decisions about their own lives and do that in a meaningful way. So I think that's one of the big challenges that we have, but one I'm sure we can continue to build towards.
I came here today, I thought I really enjoyed the conference today. It was very exciting. It's great that it takes in the whole of Ireland, people from all over Ireland here. I felt that it was very cutting edge in its approach towards autism in terms of listening to people with autism themselves and their families and really taking us on board. A lot of the time you go to conferences and you sense that there's a sort of a professional lobby that are speaking at you. They're not even directly involved in autism, and you know, we need to get rid of that now and really take the lead. It's lovely to see professionals taking the lead from us, because we really know what we're talking about because we're living with it every day.
I'm 21 years old and I live in Ashburn, County Meath. I was diagnosed with autism around the age of 2 or 3 in 1999. In school, I was like going into 5th year, I really struggled because it was around the time where you have to prepare yourself for the Living Certificate, and it was around February of 2014 when I got discriminated against for being a young female student with autism talking to 2 mainstream boys in the same class. And so, at the time, I had really bad mental health, with depression and anxiety and that. And so to be discriminated against actually made me feel as though I really should not be here. But it was the fact that I told my mom about this that really helped me get through. And so then as we got to finishing school, I did a course in multimedia in Dublin College, and it was really a good experience to know what it's like to be doing a college course, especially for a PLC, but I really didn't get any support from that. Although there were autism services there that were available, I really didn't feel as though they were that inclusive, because there was just pressure about completing assignments, trying to study for exams and that sort of thing. And then doing the Trinity courses helped me so much that literally I felt as though it's changed my life for the better, because firstly, I now know what my rights are as a woman with autism, and I also know what it's like to be going into the world of work, knowing what work life is really like. And I feel as though there's some of those important things that actually can help me become an independent woman.
My involvement comes from the fact that my youngest son, who's one of a family of 6, is severely autistic. He is non-verbal, but in the selective non-verbality. He can speak if he wants to, but doesn't. And the Society for Autism has featured as a provider of residential services, and he's living a very happy life there now. Back in the early days when when people asked me about my son and I said he was autistic, they wanted to know, did he paint or do sculpture? the awareness was so little at that particular time. Yeah. The figures we know of and the figures that were quoted at the conference today are kind of scary. When John was diagnosed, the ratio was 17 per 10,000, which translates into about 1 in 520. Somebody chose to quote a figure of 1 in 100 for Ireland today. In fact, the National Council for Special Education says it's 1 in 68. So I'm wondering you know, where we're going in terms of supports, in terms of residential support or mentoring support or anything of that nature, you know.
Personally, I've had, you know, the difficult aspect is that we're still hearing real horror stories of people trying to access services. On the one hand, we're hearing that, oh yeah, more and more money is being put into the sector in terms of providing services for people with autism, yet on the ground we're having running battles which sometimes don't seem to be changing. I myself had a massive fight to get my son into residential services last year. I'm a single parent with another child, and I just simply couldn't look after him at home anymore, and he wasn't getting what he needed from me at home anymore. And that sort of fight shouldn't have to happen. It's not fair for people to be pushed that far. So that was one thing. The second thing, I was really inspired by today, is that we're starting to see, not to see autism as just a heap of deficits, but all of our kids, all people with autism have something to offer. It's a matter of finding what they're good at, what they enjoy, and supporting them in expressing that part of themselves.
The fears and the challenges that exist are maybe the lack of structured, formalised planning for transition for students with autism and intellectual disability in Ireland, to mandate for that and to ensure that the supports are there, that there's resources there to facilitate transition, and that there are real options available for people with autism and with intellectual disability, both into education and into employment. The programme that Trinity College runs is a 2-year certificate, the FETAC Level 5 for people with intellectual disability. It's a 22-module programme, so a really broad range of subjects that students will engage with. It's also an opportunity to engage in university life and to experience what it's like to be a university student. It focuses on inclusion, so to promote inclusion of people with intellectual disability in society, both through education and work readiness. I think it raises expectations of what people can achieve and what people do have the capability and ability to do. I think it raises opportunity and opens up pathways for people that maybe they didn't consider before, and facilitates real choice and opportunity to live a life of their choosing.
Today my talk was on game changers, or perhaps more specifically influencers. What has influenced the development of service provision for individuals with autism spectrum disorder in Ireland? What has influenced their lived experience? So I was talking about a range of influences, going from the influence that families had, the leadership shown by families in helping direct the development of new opportunities for their sons and daughters. I was speaking on perhaps there's a little bit of a gap between some of the policy statements and some of the philosophical positioning and the reality of the service provision. So one thing that I would hope for in the future is that we can narrow that gap. How do we narrow that gap? I think is through a greater inclusion, stronger voices at the table, and knowing it's okay to agree, but knowing importantly it's really okay to disagree. And the more we're able to talk in an open manner, the better vision will develop to support individuals in the future.
I'm a person with autism, and I suppose my dreams and wishes for people on the spectrum is that we're treated like anybody else. One of the things that goes unnoticed is our dreams and aspirations are the same as neurotypicals. We want love, we want companionship, we want employment, we want assisted living, we want independent living where we can. So my hopes and dreams is that we'll create a world that's neurodiverse and neurotypical, and we can meet somewhere in the middle. And that not so different trains teachers, healthcare professionals and parents of children with autism about what life on the spectrum is like. And through information we can increase knowledge and understanding of people on the spectrum. We reduce social isolation, and we increase the capacity of people to support people with autism as well. So what we're trying to do is bring a real lived experience of autism to the classroom, to the employment section and to the home.
Work-wise, I would like to see greater emphasis on service provision for after 18s, greater preparation for young adulthood from about the age of 15 onwards, and a range of options for residential placements, part-time, maybe going home at weekends, some kind of a shared care arrangement, I love that idea, and I've run a shared care scheme in the past, and I would be very much in favour of seeing that being rolled out. Shared care with a respite family, I think, opens up a whole new line of people that are getting to know about one another, but getting to know about autism. And I feel what it lacks is if somebody in the shared care family is sick, obviously the placement can't go ahead. So not all families like that kind of system. But on the other hand, I feel the dividends, especially for Irish people, getting to know new people that know some people that they know, all that kind of stuff that goes on in Ireland. It works really well, and in a lot of the shared care families I had, their children actually grew up and became speech therapists and occupational therapists because they were so influenced. So it was a lovely kind of a case of inclusion within normal society. Yeah.
Back in 2010, a research institute was set up by the Dorset Charity. They're service providers in Dublin, Limerick and Tipperary. Along with their charity Respect, they set up a research institute back in 2010, and the focus of this research institute was really for researchers like myself to progress the field of autism and ID, and to conduct evidence-based research that would improve the quality of life for all the people we're serving. I work alongside engineers, computer scientists, SLT, OTs, and very importantly, within the Research Institute, we work with the clinicians, the therapists, the frontline workers, as well as individuals themselves on the spectrum, and of course, their families. So I suppose it's a research institute that's really been driven from the bottom up, and as researchers, we respond to the need.
My son is a day service user in the Cork Association for Autism. He's now 22. He was originally diagnosed way back in 2000, and we had to fight for his first assessment and ensure that he was assessed so that we could get the services to meet his needs. Once we got into school, we were fine, and then coming up to 18, we were looking for services. He finished school at the end of June. We didn't know until September. And I was delighted to hear the Minister say that they're going to do that, but I do feel that there needs to be a transitioning period from education into adult services going forward, and a proactive, solution-focused plan and strategy for the future, and that with person-centred care plans for each individual on the spectrum.
The fact that the United Nations Convention on Rights of People with Disabilities have been ratified without the optional protocol, I can easily question that a bit. But if I just hope that with the optional protocol in place and the new laws being reformed and implemented, that it can easily help people with autism get the services they need, make sure that they are part of society like everybody else, because their rights are basically everyone's human rights.
Welcome to a brighter future. There will be struggles, but more and more we're able to muster strength based on what individuals on the spectrum are discovering for themselves and teaching us when we have the ability, the wit to listen.